We're off this time. How in the hell are we off this time?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us once again on the History in Music podcast. Today we're actually going to be talking about the Rachel Sumner song, Radium Girls. This time we are actually going to be playing parts of the song during the video. And the reason why we feel comfortable in doing that this time is because we actually reached out to Rachel Sumner and we have permission from her to use the song in this video, specifically for the purposes of we think this is a thing that should be talked about and another dark moment in our government's history, in our country's history. Because this one goes dark.
It does that. So the story of the Radium Girls in Marie Curie and her husband Pierre discovered radium in 1898, and it was discovered that it glowed. Well, there was a company.
Yeah, it glows in the dark.
The United States Radium Corporation, originally called the Radium Luminous Material Corporation. They were engaged from 1917 to 1926 in extracting and purifying the ore. And I'm just trying to figure out where I'm at. But at the beginning of World War I, wristwatches were not really a thing. Men carried pocket watches. Women wore wristwatches, and it was kind of put that homosexuals wore wristwatches. I don't know what that was about, but
that's interesting. But okay.
It was discovered in
that correlation
that in World War I in the trenches, men would pull out a pocket watch and light a match to see it.
Not good in the not a good when you're in the trenches,
right?
Yeah.
So the United States Radium Corporation got a contract to produce luminous wristwatches, so they could be read in the dark. They were hand painted by the Radium Girls. This paint was a mix of radium and zinc oxide and glue. And the process was they would mix their paint and they would lip, dip, and paint. So they were licking their camel hair brushes every few strokes to sharpen the point on that brush.
Well, yeah, that makes...
Okay. Radium, when it first discovered, was the fountain of youth. There were radium water. It went into makeup to make women's glow. It went into toothpaste. It was used in a lot of ways.
I can just imagine walking around, brushing my teeth with radium toothpaste and just looking around at everybody in the dark and just going.
Well, that actually ended up happening to the girls.
Looking like a UV light in a brothel.
So, the company was horrible. This company was atrocious. Now, Rachel's song really does cover a lot of the great history behind this, because she talks about rows and rows of girls. I forget, there were as many as 300 girls painting these brushes at a time in the plant. Watches. And also aircraft dials, so they could be seen at night without lighting.
I didn't even think about that.
Dials.
Yeah.
That was often used as well. And she says that that it tasted foul. They had to paint 200 a day, which was a standard production.
Okay, just going over some of the lyrics on this one. It starts off. This song has just that. We used it in the last one. That low rolling, haunting melody. This one goes even deeper than that. That. Listen to the song, and I'll go ahead and put the song in here.
In the days when Rosie beckoned girls to join assembly lines, a mixture simply named undark made wristwatch faces shine, and women with star-spangled hearts sat faithfully in rows, bent to help the boys entrenched stave off those dark shadows. Day by day they all were tasked to paint 200 bows with brushes made of camel hair and radium dust and vials. The numbers on the clocks were painted dainty, slim and slight, so the girls were taught to use their lips to point the bristles tight. The taste was a little foul, but no one really seemed to mind. The pay was more than 3 times what a girl back then could find. Radium was championed, a newfound fount of youth, and the few who knew the dangers kept the public from the truth. For a time each painter prospered, though the work they did was tough, and were delighted when they'd clock out covered in the magic stuff. They'd decorate their drabbest dresses, paint skins so they'd sparkle. No earthly sight quite like a glowing angel in the darkness. Curialism. Even lights that shine the brightest will eventually dim, but you never do expect it, just as someone's life begins. As each timepiece passed through nimble fingers, painters dreamed and planned, though they had in fact so very little time left on their hands. Soon these young girls ached as if they'd aged for 80 years, and radiating pain turned into radiating fear. Doctors did their best to treat an unknown malady, but no remedy could keep those bodies from unraveling. So aching turned to limbering, and sore mouths began to bleed, and jaws began to break, and smiles gave way to crumbling teeth. Families became buried beneath doctor bills and loans, and grief like radium began to settle in their bones. Curialism. To have so many sick at once seemed no coincidence, but the company confronted had maintained its innocence, yet they had secretly received results that told a different story, and they knew despite their lies that they were liable for the suffering. Those who had enlisted ladies to leave luminescent marks were now working overtime to keep them in the dark. Not a single protocol was changed at all, though there was danger, and alien workers failing fast were easily exchanged for healthy younger women, unsuspecting and naive, who craved to carve their own piece of the great American dream. Nothing pierced those stone hearts fortified by corporate greed, even when the women's own hearts, one by one, had ceased to beat. Curialism. I wish that I could tell you that somebody'd found a cure, or that when the court case first came round, the crime was answered for. These women walked among the living, having one foot in the grave. Still they used what fight that they had left, so others could be saved. To this day no one can say how many lives were lost. Had they been sooner taken seriously, it might have cut the cost. You may claim women have been long since elevated in this world, but how can that be? Our ashes still speak louder than our words.
Right.
Just to cover this. But in the days when Rosie beckoned girls to join assembly lines, a mixture simply named Undark made wristwatch faces shine, and women with star-spangled hearts set faithfully in rows, bent to help the boys entrenched stave off those dark shadows.
Exactly what it was. And it was trademarked originally as the product was Undark. How clever.
Undark, yeah.
Undark.
Okay. Yeah. Then day by day, they were all tasked to paint 200 dials with brushes made of camel hair and radium dust in vials. The numbers on the clocks were painted dainty, slim, and slight, so the girls were taught to use their lips to point the bristles tight.
Exactly.
So literally just
lip, dip, and paint. That was the
paint.
official. That's kind of how they taught it. Lip, dip, paint. With which she's described,
radium, which we know how bad that is today.
Right.
But back then it was
right. Like I said, it was put into water, and there are some very, very disturbing photographs of a young man who was drinking radium water after his jaw fell off.
He was still drinking it after his jaw fell off?
No, he wasn't drinking anything forever, I guess.
Okay.
But radium is highly radioactive. We know that now, and the bad part of this whole story, and it comes up in here, the company knew damn well it was dangerous.
Beforehand.
The chemists who handled it, the men in the plant who handled it, worked behind lead screens or wore lead vests and handled it with ivory-tipped tongs. They knew it was dangerous.
Well, it even gets into that in the song.
It does.
Because, I mean, even going off of that, the taste was a little foul, but no one really seemed to mind. The pay was more than 3 times what a girl back then could find. Radium was championed as a newfound font of youth, the fountain of youth that you talked about earlier.
Right.
And the few who knew the dangers kept the public from the truth.
Right.
For a time, each painter prospered, though the work they did was tough. They decorate their drabbest dresses, paint skins so they'd sparkle. No earthly sight quite like a glowing angel in the darkness. They would come out of these places covered in radium dust.
So they would paint themselves.
They would paint themselves with it because, quite frankly, anybody out there, if they walk into a nightclub, in 1920, or in 1910s, 1920s, and okay, yeah, that girl looks all right. That girl looks all right. That girl looks all right. What? She is literally glowing. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, here's the bad part of this.
You mean other than the fact that radium is highly radioactive?
Well, they did that on the surface to begin with. After a time, they actually glowed without applying it. They were glowing from inside. Their skin actually began to glow without applying radium. Their bones glowed after autopsy, and the company stole their bones. Yes.
Okay.
The story here gets really weird with this company. Was awful. Absolutely awful.
Then, going through, the glowing angels in the darkness. Yeah, that's going to attract some people to, hey, look at me. I glow.
Right.
These other girls don't glow. Come pay attention to me. But then it goes into that, and I find this funny. It's Curie Eleison.
Right.
Which is the Greek, it's translated into English from Greek, which is what it originally is. It means
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, Lord have mercy. And then it's, Curie Eleison, Curie. But I do find the correlation there interesting, at least, because Madame Curie discovers radiation and radium.
Yeah.
And invents the X-ray and ends up dying from radiation exposure. And once again, and her body glowed after her death.
She's in a lead casket today. Yeah.
And just I know it's a bastardization because the original spelling for it was Kyrie,
right.
But she changed it to the Curie
right.
in this song, which is brilliant just to correlate the two together. Madame Curie, Curie Eleison. Yeah. Then we start getting into the dark part of the song.
That is correct.
Even though, we already talked about it, earlier up where it says, the few who knew the dangers kept the public from the truth.
Right.
Now we start getting into the people start realizing something's going on. Even lights that shine the brightest will eventually dim, but you never do expect it just as someone's life begins. Because these are young girls that they're hiring to do
Correct.
this. And as such, as each time pit, I'll learn to talk here in a minute. As each timepiece passed through nimble fingers, painters dreamed and planned, though they had in fact so very little time left on their hands. Soon these young girls ached as if they'd aged for 80 years, and radiating pain turned into radiating fear. Doctors did their best to treat an unknown malady, but no remedy could keep these bodies from unraveling. So aching turned to limping, and sore mouths began to bleed. Then jaws began to break, and smiles gave way to crumbling teeth. Families became buried beneath doctor bills and loans, and grief, like radium, began to settle in their bones. Right there,
bones.
Where their bones are glowing.
And it also led to brittle bones, where they were breaking bones. The initial doctor's visit was, I had the girl's name somewhere, I think. She went to a dentist. She had tooth pain. So they extracted that tooth, and they had to extract the next tooth, and they wouldn't heal. This same girl died in 1928, and she died after her dentist reached in her mouth and actually pulled her jaw off. Yeah, it's disturbing. It caused bone deterioration.
So the first death wasn't until 11 years later?
That was got it actually. Yeah, it was.
If you notice, we learned from last time, and we actually had notes and the lyrics printed out this time.
Okay. No, in 1923. So they started in 1917.
Okay, so it was only 6 years. Okay.
Yeah. In 1923, the first dial painter died. Before her death, her dentist pulled her lower jaw off by simply pulling it away.
So all he did was just, gently reach up to open her mouth, and it just her whole jaw just comes off.
Her bone is so deteriorated that it just came apart.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ow.
And she died within a few days because it just wouldn't heal. Just a horrible death.
Well, yeah.
I mean, just horrible death. But
for how long had she been seeing that dentist, and when did he pull that first tooth?
I didn't quite I didn't quite find that information, but I'm assuming it's within a year or so. That's my assumption from what I've read.
Okay, so
But
had she been actively, painting these watches and everything for that period of time?
and I'm not sure when she was originally hired. So it could have been as early as 1917. It did take some time for the worst cases to actually develop into these absolutely awful cancers and lesions and lost teeth. It took time because it's a small amount of radiation each time, but
Yeah, but still, when you're working around it all day and small little tiny amounts, and we still have radium glass and things like that today, which they glow in the dark. And we've got to find a better position for your damn microphone if you keep freaking having to reach underneath of it to put your beer back.
yeah, well,
But yeah, that is.
and yeah, remember there's no welfare, no health insurance. So these girls were literally getting buried under, the families and the girls were getting buried under medical bills, medical, dental, and later legal. But
Yeah. And, well, the legal doesn't come till much later.
Comes much later, yes.
But then, after this, it goes into the next verse. To have so many sick at once seemed no coincidence, but the company confronted had maintained its innocence. Yet they'd secretly received results that told a different story, and they knew, despite their lies, that they were liable for the suffering.
Okay. After the 1923 death, the first one, by 1924, 50 women had been, who had worked at the plant were ill, and a dozen had died. At the urging of the company, medical professionals put these worker deaths off to other medical causes, primarily syphilis, to taint the reputations of these girls.
Oh,
and the medical and dental communities went along with it because this was a large corporation.
Yeah.
And
they're making wristwatches for all of the people that are fighting in World War One. Yeah,
everyone got one, and they went. So the company went from making like 1,200 wristwatches a year to millions.
Yeah,
within a few years. So it's.
And if you're looking at me and back in that time, hey, you come over here and you can make $1 per hour. Or you go over here and you can make $3 per hour. Which one am I going to choose at that point in time?
Right.
If you're making 3 times the pay that anybody else is, yeah, you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to make bank. I can just roll with this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everything just quickly goes to absolute shit.
Yep.
Yeah. Those who had enlisted ladies to leave luminescent marks were now working overtime to keep them in the dark. The company covering everything up and trying to hide everything from everybody and all that. And not a single protocol was changed at all, though there was danger. And alien workers failing fast were easily exchanged for healthy younger women, unsuspecting and naive, who craved to carve their own piece of the great American dream. Nothing pierced these stone hearts fortified by corporate greed. Even when the women's own hearts, one by one, had ceased to beat. And those lines right there, it is, the company knew they were killing people at this point in time.
Yes.
And the only thing they kept doing was covering it up and covering it up and covering it up and burying the evidence and getting rid of everything. And
they literally stole bones and bodies after autopsy because the bones were glowing in the dark.
No, I'm sure.
So
one thing I'm sure of at that point in time is they probably did their best to get hold of the bodies before the autopsy or anything else.
I feel certain they did.
Because this is just,
it's shocking. The just negligence, not purposeful.
No, this isn't
negligence.
It is purposeful cover up.
Oh yeah.
Of a horrible thing that you
Right.
knew you were doing to these people.
Right. Yeah, it's not negligence, it's just homicide.
Yeah, at this point in time, it is. Not bypassing manslaughter. It is just flat out just mass homicide.
Yeah, essentially it was.
Because this is just this whole story is it just shows how far these companies will go to just say, you know what, and this is well before OSHA came around or anything like that. It just goes to show how bad these companies are of, okay, well, keeping us in the black and our profit margins are more important than the people that are actually making us these profits. And that's,
this isn't the only industry that's guilty of that. Just for example, I'm thinking coal mines. Coal companies denied black lung for years.
yes,
It's just y'all unhealthy.
yes.
But eventually it's found out coal miners develop black lung. It's a real thing. And so this isn't the only industry. This was just probably the one that kicked off because of some of the lawsuits that came about. And I don't think she really talks about that.
Yes, she does.
Does she?
Yep. I wish that I could tell you that somebody found a cure, or that when the court case first came around, the crime was answered for. These women walked among the living, having one foot in the grave. Still they used what light that they had left so others could be saved. And this is where you were talking about, later the legal bills. The girls actually realized this, started fighting back, filed the lawsuits against the company. And now they're spending their own money to try and make sure that this company pays for what it had done to them and what it was still continuing to do to people.
Right.
And to this day, no one can say how many lives were lost. Had they been sooner taken seriously, it might have cut the cost. You may claim women have been long since elevated in this world, but how can that be? Our ashes still speak louder than our words.
Yeah.
These girls died in horrible fashions. And the company did absolutely nothing except for hide everything, hide all the evidence, keep everything away from them, and then one of them drops out and can't work anymore.
Hire another.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you just turned 18. You want to make 3 times what anybody else your age can? Come work for us.
They were doing.
Yeah.
And there were actually more. There was more than one company. I say USRC, but there were 3 primary companies, and they were in. I don't remember the names, but I do know they were in New Jersey, Illinois, and then Connecticut, and they operated way longer than they should have. Now, I will say that radium paint was used into the 1970s, albeit definitely with new safety standards.
Hopefully.
The first lawsuit was filed by a brave young lady named Grace Fryer. It took her 2 years to find an attorney. Now, he did it pro bono. No attorneys were ready to face this corporation. This was a very, very large, powerful corporation. Now, here, I hate this. They settled out of court denying any wrongdoing. There were, I think, 5 women included in this original lawsuit. They settled for $10,000 for each girl and a $600 annual annuity. They were also paid $12 a week, and all their medical and legal expenses were paid.
Well, that's okay. Thankfully for that.
That's 5 women.
Yeah, that's just 5 out of hundreds that were
right.
It only paid for 5 of
the original
hundreds,
suit,
if not thousands.
Right. The original suit involved 5 women, and those are the ones that got the settlement from the company.
Yeah, the $10,000 a piece plus
now
$600 a year and $12 a week.
Correct, and their legal and medical expenses paid.
Yeah,
but they were dead by 1930, so.
Well, that didn't last long. But
now, what I will say is this: Uh, in After this lawsuit, there were a lot of lawsuits. In 1949, Congress passed a bill that said a company could be sued if it knowingly exposed employees to a dangerous condition. So,
And that was when?
1949. Yeah, after World War
Okay,
II.
after World War II. Yeah.
It was a slow process, but it did change. Uh, there was a lot of research after this in health physics, women's rights, workers' rights. The changes here were huge because of the Radium Girls. This had a lot of press, especially in New Jersey.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Because that was the original. Now, the women in Illinois and Connecticut eventually got sick, but the originals were the big impetus for change.
And those are the ones in New Jersey.
That is correct.
Okay.
New Jersey.
Interesting.
And again, oddly, radium paint was used in watch dials into the 1970s. You can't even, as far as I know, legally buy. You can get them, I think, on eBay, like back channel stuff.
You can, I mean, yeah, you can
Wearing
still.
them is not good. Having radium right next to your skin is still radiation.
Yeah, it's still radioactive substance.
It's not
right next to you.
the same as ingesting it day after day.
Yeah, for, 8, 10, 12 hours a day.
But I will say, and I'm gonna get to the song. Rachel Sumner. Should we talk about our surprise?
Well, we're getting now to the point where we are going to have the surprise. So
Yes.
at this point in time, I'm pretty sure we don't even need to talk about it. We just need to just go ahead.
Just need to do it.
We just need to go ahead and drop it in, I don't know, right about now. Well, let's get the legal part out of the way.
Okay.
Okay, we do have permission from you as the writer of the song and the owner of the other YouTube channel to use your video and the song in our video.
Yes, you do.
Thank you for that. And go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Now, you were just alluding to the fact you'd never heard of it until, what, 2019?
Yeah, so the way that I came across the story of the Radium Girls was really roundabout. What happened was my favorite songwriter, Joanna Newsom, I was delving into one of her songs called Time as a Symptom. And it's the last track on her most recent record. And the latter half of this song is just stream of consciousness words. And so I was just taking a moment and looking up each individual word and learning more about it. There's a lot of words I didn't recognize in there. One of those words was undarked. And I looked up undarked, and that was the name of the paint that the Radium Girls used. So that sent me down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, and that's how I came across the story of the Radium Girls, which really upset me because I felt like it was an important enough story that I should have learned it in school, at least, in some kind of history book, or somebody should have told me about it. Somebody should have been talking about it. And I asked all of my friends and family, have you heard of this story? This was in 2019 before the Netflix movie came out. And nobody had it, and it was shocking. And each time I asked and each time I found out that they didn't know, I got more enraged. The thing was, simultaneously, on the other side of this coin, I am a student of old folk songs. I love child ballads. I love Appalachian ballads. And I teach songwriting classes. And one of the classes that I teach is about how murder ballads are not just gory ballads for the heck of it, but they are ballads to share stories. And that there was a time where people didn't have, or they didn't have the whole story of why somebody was getting, hung at the gallows. And so a balladeer would write up the whole story, print it out on a page, and sell it, or sing it. And that's how these ballads were passed down from person to person, and then eventually generation to generation. And there are, these songs kind of morph in the way that folk songs do, and I'm very interested in that. But they all have like a fingerprint to them, and they all have a reason for being. And so I was studying all of these old ballads. And so when I found the Radium Girls, I had been
deep in that well. And I realized, maybe this is an opportunity to create my own ballad in the same tradition that the old folk songwriters did back in 500 years ago in England and Scotland and Appalachia, to share a story that is really important and that I want to be preserved for generation to generation. And so that's what set me about to writing the song. It took 9 months, but I did it.
That makes you a modern bard.
Exactly.
That was the job of the bard, was to share stories through song and
Record the histories.
right. And we've got a few coming up, especially local to us, that are murder ballads. Honestly, there's several of them. We live in the Appalachian Mountains, so we have a lot of murder ballads.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wait, where are you guys?
We're in Boone, North Carolina.
Oh, North Carolina. Okay, I know where that is.
Okay, so yeah, and matter of fact, I just found a song about Helene, the storm. We
Oh,
were heavily impacted.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we're constantly hunting songs, and yeah, we're this was one when I heard it, I knew had to be one of our first in our list. Just it's such a good song, and honestly, um, I said in our recording, I find your voice it's reminiscent to me of Alison Krauss.
Oh,
I find you just a wonderful singer. Uh, it,
thank,
and I appreciate the song, and I've listened to most of your other stuff that you have on YouTube. I love it. Uh,
thank.
I haven't been able to dig near as deep as Dave does, or as Dave has into your stuff, but I've heard a few of them, and yeah, they're pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Alison Krauss was kind of my gateway. Her and Nickel Creek were my gateway into bluegrass music. And from there,
Okay.
I discovered Hazel Dickens and Alice Gerrard and Bill Monroe and got very much into the bluegrass world.
it's a big thing here, but
Yeah.
It's not that big anywhere else, but
yeah,
I know if I want to torture my kids, I just have them in the car and I start playing bluegrass music. So
Austin actually has a really great bluegrass music scene. You wouldn't think. I'm from California. I had heard about the bluegrass music scene in Boston because Berklee College of Music was one of the first, that in Belmont, in Tennessee. Those were like the first two schools that had college degrees surrounding Appalachian music and bluegrass music and folk music. So there was like a really big boom here of bluegrass music. Crooked Still, Della Mae. I started a band called Twisted Pine. We did bluegrass. And so it's just, yeah, it was kind of bizarre. I was like, why is bluegrass so big in Boston? But yeah, but it's not as big as it is in North Carolina. That's for sure.
you have surely you had some other questions.
well,
I'll
yeah, I
ask
had
them.
other questions,
I'll
but
ask
I was
because I
pretty much
forgot
going to
mine.
let you.
You
Of
let
course,
it.
you forgot yours.
Yes, I don't
Can
have my
I?
notes handy.
We've heard the story behind the lyrics in the actual song, but what made you choose the melody that you did for that song?
Hmm. So actually, this kind of ties in with the class that I was teaching on songwriting. I noticed that a lot of ballads that were very word heavy had kind of static melodies. They didn't veer too far, and I figured that that was probably so that folks could focus in on the words. And normally, when I go to write a song, I will sometimes have a melody or a structure in mind, and then write around that structure or that melody. With this, I wanted to just really put the story front and center, and so I worked on the lyrics first, which I had never done when writing a song. And it was really interesting how everything kind of panned out. I didn't have melody in my head while I was writing it. I wrote the lyrics according to the meter that I chose and the rhyme scheme, and um, and then I sat down and started tried set about to finding something that felt right for the words. And in my mind, I was thinking, this is a very wordy song. We want people to focus on the story, so try not to go too high or too low. Keep it in a pretty small range. Um, and that actually, I think it was an interesting way of working for me. I was able to add some intrigue to the melody by having interesting chords. So I that was where I let myself kind of loose a little bit, and I didn't just stick to a 1 4 5 progression. I added a flat seven in there and some other like kind of strange things. Especially at the refrain, the Kyrie eleison part. I wanted that to feel magical and feel otherworldly because I mean it is. It's like a that phrase Curie liaison is a combination of science, Marie Curie,
The translation from Greek, which
yeah,
is
Curie
Kyrie,
liaison, which is, yeah,
then
Lord have
yes,
mercy,
Lord have mercy.
pairing it with Marie Curie's name. So in a way, you're begging Marie
I told you that's what she did. I told you that's exactly what she did.
in a way, it's begging Marie Curie for mercy or and pairing like the holy with the scientific and having these two kind of things that rub up against each other. The idea of God and science in one phrase. That was the idea of that, and I wanted to set that musically too, something that was out of the tonal realm to make it stand out as well.
Well,
That answers that question.
you just took care of all my questions right there that I had planned. I was planning on asking you about, the spelling on the Kyrie liaison. I was doing. Oh, yeah, that is the lyrics. I thought you stuck all of them over there.
It's interesting. I came up with that before I set out to writing the song, and the first draft of the song didn't have a refrain. It didn't have Kyrie eleison in it. And I remember my husband is a really close collaborator of mine. He's an incredible songwriter in his own right. His name is Ian Fitzgerald, and I've learned so much about him. In fact, my idea of starting with lyrics only came from him because that's how he starts his songs. He writes all of his songs lyrics first, and then he sets it to music. And so I wanted to try my hand at that. And I told him when I was setting about to writing the song, I kind of word vomited a little bit and just told him, okay, this is the concept of my song. I'm going to start writing it. And I had come up with like a pun, and I told him Curie liaison, and I wrote it down, but I didn't think too much of it. And first draft came, it didn't have a refrain, and the structure was slightly different than what it is now. And I played it for him, and he was like, I think it needs something to glue it together in between all these verses, something that you can come back to. It needs a refrain. And I was like, oh well, crap, I don't have a refrain. And he's like, yes you do. It was the first thing you wrote. It was Kyrie eleison. So we have Ian to thank for uh scooping that phrase up from just like a thing that I said in passing, and kind of pointing me toward it as this is it.
And the way that you wrote that in there. Sorry, Dave. Out of the two of us, Dave's the historian, and I'm. I say it in a lot of our videos. I'm the English major, but my mom has a master's degree in music, and she actually spent a couple of years up there in Boston,
Oh yeah.
going around to the Philharmonic and doing everything like that, studying everything up there.
Wow.
And as I alluded to earlier, when I just said what made you choose the melody that you did, and it just turned into, the low rolling, but you wanted it to have that haunting effect. And
Hmm.
in the Kyrie liaison, but you also use the refrain so well in this one, because in the beginning you talk about all the good that they thought was happening in the first. I wouldn't really call it a verse, but in the before you get to the first refrain, it's all just a flat out this was the good that they were hearing. Then you break it up, and then that first line, that even lights that shine the brightest will eventually dim. You start getting into, and you go little by little, but you add in, okay, this is what they first noticed, then they noticed this, and then all of a sudden everything just went to absolute crap.
Yeah. Thank you for
And
explaining the structure of it.
uh, this one, I listened to it for every day when I was in my car. I've got a 30-minute ride to work. I've got a 30-minute ride back home.
Oh my
I
God.
listened to it in my car on the way to work, on the way back home. I had it playing while I was at lunch. I was going into everything, taking notes and breaking everything down for the song. Yeah, because just as soon as I heard it, it was just, ooh, no. And then as soon as I told my mom about it, she's like, nope, you at least have to do this one justice because she listened to the song and it's been haunting her as well.
Gosh.
But then you go through when you go through that next after the first refrain, you go through and it was just how fast everything then turned from, oh, this was how great it was when they first got the job. Then this is how quickly everything went downhill from there.
Mhm.
And then in the third, after the second refrain, I keep wanting to call them verses, even though they're not really
I think of
verses.
them as verses. They're, 1, 2, 3, because the refrain happens 3 times. I think of it as verses.
But then when you get in, okay, when you get into the third verse, it goes. It's just okay. Everything bad that has happened, and then how much it just got covered up.
Mhm.
And then you end it with going back into kind of the high note that you had in the first verse, because then it was, at the very end of it, when you're talking about they're easily exchanged for, and you bring it back up a little bit, there it is, healthy younger women, unsuspecting and naive. But then you balance it out again with the corporate greed.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to call it outro for lack of a better word. You might be able to, tell me what you call it or whatever.
I call it an
But
outro.
then, okay, there we go. And then just going through saying, no, we wish you could tell you there was a happy ending to the story, but there's no happy ending. It's just, and we talk about it in our podcast, a lot of the lawsuits that came out of this ended up being the basis for OSHA and
Right.
a lot of
Women's
the
rights,
workers' rights and
rights.
women's rights that we have now.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
bill in 1949 that allowed individuals to sue companies who harmed them. So it's absolutely wonderfully put together. I have one more question I have to ask. It's the only, as a historian, I mentioned in the podcast, in the days when Rosie beckoned girls to join assembly lines.
Mhm.
Is that the Rosie the Riveter reference?
Well, yes, and I know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say. Um,
And
I
we did cover that in our episode as well. So.
this it I did not take it very lightly to use Rosie, who is World War II. And this story, I mean, the story starts in World War One. The Radium Girls were in that era, but radium dial companies lasted until the 70s.
That's correct.
And so I
We
thought
talk about that as well. So
I thought long and hard about how I I always think about how people enter a song like a painting. You people look at a painting, they find red, and that's where the eye is naturally drawn. So I think of the first line. This is the way that you draw somebody in. You have to set the table for them. And Rosie was a shorthand that I think everybody knows about Rosie the Riveter. When you think of Rosie the Riveter, you think of women covering men's jobs in the war, you think of government propaganda, you think of all of these things, and it's just Rosie. You just say Rosie, and all of that comes with that one word.
Every single person that I know of, as soon as I say Rosie, that's the thing that they think of right there.
Exactly, and it also it encapsulates the positivity that like women were feeling of like, yes, I'm going to help, the work effort. And so I chose Rosie instead of like the Gibson girls, or I chose her because I thought that people would see that in their minds, have a setting, and then come into the story. And I figured, it's the story lasts for a very long time, and so hopefully, that would be okay. Some people have gotten mad at me. One person that talked to me on video about how my song was actually it harmed the Radium Girls' legacy, and I don't think so. I think that it just helps people find a place in time and like really latch on to the rest of the song, because if you don't settle in that first line, then you're not going to listen to the rest of the song, you're not going to find your way. So that's why I chose it.
And I just had to ask you. It's a beautiful line. But being a history geek I am,
I understand.
it's funny enough.
1943
Yes.
is when Rosie came around.
Yes.
And we're talking about things that started in 1916, 1917.
Right.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking time out of your day in order to join us and put up with our random crap that we're doing. So
This is great. I love talking about the process. I'm a student of song, and I love explaining my process. I love just talking about music. This is great. And I love talking about history, and especially forgotten pieces of history. So this is a real treat. Thank you.
If I'm going to keep my eyes open, if you do another historical song, let me know, because I will absolutely pay attention and cover it. Because
I do have one in the works right now, but it might take a while. So
well, just as soon as we see it on your website, we're probably going to call you again. So.
that sounds good. Thank you,
hopefully
guys.
you'll be a star by then. World tours and all that.
I don't know how much 5-minute songs about a lot of dying women can catapult you into stardom, but
Oh, let's see. I think it was also actually with the video and everything. It was 7 minutes and 49 seconds long for
yeah,
your
that
video version.
is definitely 7 minutes. It's not a radio edit for sure.
Correct. Yeah, and it's also a good thing that I put on there on every single video that we do. We're veterans. We survive on alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, and swear words. So I definitely put on every video that this is not recommended for children.
No, it's very interesting. There are a lot of kids sometimes at my shows, and moms come up to me and they're like, I've been using this as like, we homeschool our kids, and we were teaching them history, and we've been using your songs as a lot of like inspiration for chapters at our homeschool, and that's been very cool to see. Very honored to be a part of it.
Once we got about 2.5 minutes left on this meeting, we're going to let you go ahead and get back to doing whatever in the world you were doing. And thank you once again for taking the time out of your day to entertain a couple of old combat vets. But
Thanks so much for having me. Nice to meet you guys.
Well, it was
thank
great.
you. Nice meeting you.
Hi, take care.
Bye. Have a good day.
You.
Yeah.
Have your little clap be the magic point where that just all of a sudden pulls into it. I still got to figure out how in the world I'm going to record all that.
I think Rachel's this song is another one. And our first episode was the Edward Fitzgerald. Gordon Lightfoot did a fantastic job doing the history. This song, I found one hiccup, and I know it was written in just for musical flow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the reference
right
to
there,
Rosie.
Right there at the beginning line where it says,
Rosie, that's a reference, honestly, as far as I can tell, I'll ask her. but that would be Rosie the Riveter when women were called up. Now, they were called up during World War One as well, but in World War II, they were called up in huge numbers to work in factories. And Rosie the Riveter was a World War II kind of icon, poster icon. You know, support your boys overseas and work in the factories, and they built planes and tanks. Women were building everything.
They built everything.
And they did this in World War One as well. And this was one of the jobs that they held in World War One, was painting these watch faces. Tragic story. But honestly, it led to, like I said, workers' rights and women's rights, things that needed to change. Companies are much less likely.
Yeah, Rosie the Riveter didn't come around until 1943.
Yeah.
And after the poster came out and was widely distributed, then and it was a Norman Rockwell painting as well.
It was.
And there was also a song, Rosie the Riveter. The name Rosie the Riveter originated in a 1940 song by Red Evans and John Jacob Loeb, inspired by a woman named Rosalind P. Walter, who worked as a riveter during World War II.
Yeah, building airplanes. I think she worked in an airplane factory, riveting airplane bodies.
But what everybody knows as Rosie the Riveter is originally a Norman Rockwell painting.
Yep. But other than that, this song is historically accurate, and I'm going to say right off, I'm a huge fan of Alison Krauss. I think Rachel's voice hits me just like Alison Krauss.
It is
that lovely yodel.
It's kind of hard to describe her voice. But
Yeah,
it is interesting because it is, and I kind of have to agree with you. It kind of hits like Alison Krauss or
yeah. So, all right, I am going to say, my sister turned me on to this song, and boy, I don't regret it. And I'm going to tell you, you should like and subscribe to Rachel Sumner's YouTube channel and here.
She's got a lot of music out
there. And it's beautiful.
I think she actually has. When I was looking at it earlier, she has 76 videos that are up and 766 subscribers.
Yeah, we need to fix that.
And I think we need to. Just this song alone has 21,000 views on it, and that needs to be fixed because there's a lot more people who need to hear this story.
About 15 of those are mine. I keep going back and listening to it.
Oh, I've got it on.
Not just for the history, but I love the song.
I've got it on my Spotify. I've got it downloaded to the computer. I've got it downloaded on my phone for the actual YouTube video. Just going down the road. It is a wonderful song just in and of itself. And like I was talking about before, that low rolling, haunting melody that goes along behind it. And for the first part of it, when she's just singing in the intro part of it, it flows all together, and then all of a sudden all the music starts playing behind it, and you for a little bit you don't even notice that the music's playing because you're still focused on her voice and the backup singer singing with it.
Right. And it's Rachel Sumner.
We'll find out we will try and find out her name in the interview, so I'll try and see if I can't throw it in here.
And I know the band is Rachel Sumner and Traveling Light. And the girl that harmonizes with her, sings with her, plays violin, fiddle.
Yes.
And then there's typically a bass player with Traveling Light. And it is just enough.
There was a bass player, there's the violin player,
and then she's playing the guitar. She's
playing the guitar, but also in another one of the videos, there's a flute player in the back. Okay. And I'm not talking about the one where it's Rachel Sumner and this other person. I cannot remember her name right now. I'll probably throw it up down here, as well as I'm definitely going to link the video up there.
Good place to put it. Over here.
Right. Yeah, it's going to pop up, like right above your head, saying, "Hey, watch Rachel's video here." subscribe to Rachel's channel. Here
Absolutely.
it is. Because
she has been, and I will say this: I reached out to her when I first heard this song. I thought, oh, I wonder if I can find her, and I hit her up on
you
Instagram.
found her on Facebook in like 5 minutes.
Instagram. And
okay.
I sent her a message, said, we would love to do this song. Here's what we do. We want to use your song because it interests us. The history interests us. She hit me right back and said, tell me what I can do, and gave us permission. Yeah, she got right back to me. She has been absolutely a pleasure to deal with.
I know at this point in time, I've already dropped the like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification thing down here at the bottom of the screen. I probably did that somewhere within the first, couple of minutes of the video.
And if you're listening on podcast, be sure to give us a 5-star.
And also, as always, drop comments. If there's a song you want to hear us do, I know I put up the poll a little bit ago. We got one vote on the poll that said, do the Battle of New Orleans. We are planning on doing the Battle of New Orleans. It's coming up. It's just we're fixing to do another Johnny Horton song, and we kind of want to cover that one before we do. And we don't want to, just all of a sudden have, Johnny Horton, Johnny Horton, Johnny Horton, Johnny Horton, Johnny Horton, Johnny Horton.
Well, I will say this.
There's going to be a lot of Johnny Horton.
There's going to be a lot of Johnny. Because Johnny Horton was a balladeer who covered historical events.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them not.
But we don't want to turn into, the history of Johnny Horton.
Correct. Again, and I think we said this in our introduction, a lot of them are going to be country.
That's because it's where you get most of the ballads.
You get ballads, right? So,
but once again, I am still looking forward to doing. Today was a good day. I like the song. I like what it was talking about in the song. I don't agree with everything that's in the song, but you can track that song down to one particular day in Los Angeles.
That sounds like a challenge. I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay. So I did the intro this time. You want to cover the outro?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We hope you gleaned some education. I hope everybody understands that this was a dark time in history, but things got better.
Dark time in history.
Things got better because of these girls.
Yes. And it led to a lot of the safety things that we have today.
That is exactly the case. In fact, a lot of people, some of my readings said that OSHA was actually kind of developed out of the laws that came from this case. So,
okay, interesting.
Again, thank you for joining us. We hope to earn your subscription, and we will see you next time.
And as always, if you liked hearing from us, and you like what we do, please drop a like, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to let you know whenever we post new content, as well as please drop a comment down below. Let us know what we're doing wrong, let us know what we're doing good, and if you're listening to us on one of the podcast services that we push this program out to, by all means, rate and review, and just the best way we can get around is by word of mouth. Tell it to your friends if you like what we do and you think they'd be interested in hearing what we're doing. So, other than that, y'all have a good time, and we'll see you next time.